Hello everyone, I hope you're doing really well and having a good day. My name is Samantha. Welcome back to Honey Hill. So there's been a few things that have happened in the garden since you were here last. One of those things being that I planted 3 baby Everest crabapple trees along the south side of our property to add a little bit of a screen. I'm going to be building a new flower bed. And then we had our mulch delivered or compost delivered about a week ago. So I have some spreading of that to do today in the backyard. As much as I have time for, I've got about 2 hours before I have to start getting ready to pick up my kids from school, my older kids, and then do all the, after school ballet and all that stuff. And then I wasn't able to take out the camera yesterday, but yesterday I went and I planted a bunch of new perennials in the lower backyard garden. The blue, white, and yellow border. And I have some beautiful things to show you guys. But that's where I'm going to be primarily working today. But let me show you. So I'm going to show you. So I planted 3. There's 4 here now, but the larger one was already here, and I couldn't find any other Everest crabapple trees that were that size. I got the large one at Christensen's nursery in Mount Vernon, Washington, on the west side of the state, and we drove it home last spring. But I was able to find these 3 little babies last summer here locally, and I just now got them planted. But the plan here is actually to cut out the lawn, so make a curving, kind of mirrored curve flower border, and then plant some shrubs and roses and things that are really tough on this side to act as a living, interesting hedge. So I kind of decided against just doing one type of evergreen or something like that. And I think what I'm going to do is just make it really dynamic and with lots of interest. I'm gonna be heavily inspired by the hedgerows that Florette put in on her farm. So I'm gonna be doing some similar planting, starting with these Everest crabapple trees. And then Prairie got her summer cut yesterday, and she is very happy about it, actually. Please excuse all of the jackhammering in the background. They must be either building a house or they are mining and digging up all the granite across the hillside, and they're probably quite far away, but where we live, it's normally so quiet and peaceful, and it has been going on for at least 2 weeks. So that's kind of a pain, being outside with all that noise, and I can hear construction equipment echoing through the hillside. But aren't these snowdrops amazing? These leucojum or snowbells. They're the giant leucojum ones, and they're just so beautiful. I planted them a couple years ago, and they're finally starting to take off. But that's definitely a bulb I'm going to be adding a lot more of this fall. And I want to add them down here. I have some in the front of this blue, white, and yellow border, but I want to kind of put them everywhere. So this is what the border's looking like right now. Remember, I still have to mow all of this down, put cardboard or paper over it, and then compost it to kind of create this woodland bed where I'm going to be adding Japanese maples and ferns and bulbs in the fall, and keep it pretty simple, pretty low maintenance, because most of my garden is not low maintenance, and I need to start doing a better job at keeping some things more low maintenance. But I added yesterday this gorgeous Vanessa Bell David Austin rose, and what a beautiful fragrance this rose has. And so it's this lovely pale yellow, so perfect for the yellow blue and white border. And this is a rose that Monty Don had added to the mound where he has his blue, white, and yellow planting, which this border was inspired by Monty Don. So I've known since I saw him plant his that I needed to get a Vanessa Bell, and I just saw this one at a local nursery looking so beautiful. I was like, I've got to get that one. And I had a dream last night. I didn't spray any liquid fence, and I planted it, and it's further away from the house, which is the farther we get from the house, the more vulnerable planting is to deer. And I had a dream that the deer came through last night and ate every leaf, every flower, everything on it down to nubs, and then all my new planting, and I was just like sick. And I woke up thinking that it actually happened, and I looked out my bathroom window and saw it still standing there and was so relieved. But I definitely need to spray some liquid fence. I keep getting that question, how do you keep the deer away from eating your roses? And they do eat my roses, but the best defense I have has been having a dog and liquid fence. And I did find out that I will be able to add some fencing around our property. I have a neighbor who's doing it this summer, and it's a huge financial investment, so we have to plan for that and decide exactly the type of material we're going to use and how far we're going to extend the fence around we have almost 6 acres, so obviously we're not going to fence in all 6 acres, but it's tricky too because a lot of our property goes down this very steep hillside, which it's steep all the way around, and it extends down into this woodland. The other thing I wanted to mention to you guys was you'll be able to see these dead trees in our forest behind us, and we had a forester come out last week and inspect our trees that are on our property. There's some dead ones further out that way. There's dead ones further out towards the front of our property. And in 2021, you will remember if you watched my June garden tour when we were having like 108-degree weather. We had a drought that summer with 110-degree temperatures. And the forester explained to us that was like the perfect condition, or those were the perfect conditions for the fir beetles to come in and infest these struggling fir trees. We also have trees with pine beetle as well. But the thing about the fir beetles that is unique is that they have only one life cycle per season, whereas the pine beetles can have multiple life cycles in a season. You can see more dead trees that way. So we aren't really seeing the effects of the beetles until this year, 2 years later. And what we are going to have to do to preserve the healthy trees that are left is to thin out this forest, cut out all of the dead and infected trees, and have a logging company do this work. And they're going to process the logs for lumber, and we're going to try to do this as a massive community effort because everyone around us has been affected, and that will hopefully bring the cost down to have these trees logged, because it can be very, very expensive to have your trees cut down. So the other things I planted yesterday were the forget-me-nots, these beautiful blue forget-me-nots, and I just scattered them through. Forget-me-nots are one of my favorite spring ground covers, and these will seed hopefully. If they like their conditions, they can seed readily, and they'll just kind of sprout out throughout this border. I planted a couple little forget-me-nots when we first moved in, and they've just seeded themselves around the front, and not like crazy aggressively. I'd like to have even more of them than I do. But the more of this type of ground cover that there is, the less weeds that can come in. And to that end, I also planted, I could only grab 3 at the nursery. There's one over here as well of sweet woodruff, which is a white flowering ground cover. It's one of my favorite ground covers. This will also spread readily, and I'm actually going to be getting a lot more of it and planting it throughout the beds, like even in the back, just so that we have ground cover covering the soil. The more soil we have covered, the less chance for weeds, and weeding is a killer for my body and for my time, and the less compost and mulch we have to bring in, which is expensive if you're not making it yourself or you don't have the capacity to make the amount that you would need. I certainly don't have that capacity at this time to make the amount of compost that I need. Hopefully someday in the future I can. That would be a huge goal. And then I also got and dotted these around. There's 5 of them here. There's 3 more back there. These are wild strawberries, which is another spreading ground cover, and they have these little white blossom. And I just like the really waxy, rich green leaves. And I planted this around the pond, which, by the way, so I'm going to be leveling out all the stones with some sand, and I'm going to be bringing in a bunch more of these kinds of stones, making a little pathway to a bench. I don't know if that bench is going to stay there, but some kind of seating there. And then it's just sort of like, this is sort of like a placeholder. And then actually making there be less gaps between the stones and stacking them up a second level. So having 2 levels of stone, really tightening this up, then surrounding everything with mulch or compost. And so I planted these London Pride saxifrage, which was from that episode of Gardener's World that I just was obsessed with a few weeks ago. And it's got a little bit of a pink to it, but or the petals are white, but there's some pink in the center of the petals, and I don't mind that though. Even though this is my blue, white, and yellow border, I planted camasias here in the fall as well, and I think those are actually the pink ones. So there will be a little bit of pink in here, as well as I have 3 pastel elegance peonies that I planted in the fall coming up, and those are a creamy soft color with a little bit of blush to it, so we can kind of fade into a little bit of pink. And then I did plant some more Origeron daisies. The ones I planted here last summer, I'm not seeing signs of life, and I'm not seeing a lot of evidence of them seeding themselves, which is sad. I might try to see if I can get seed from different varieties of Origeron that might be a little hardier here. This was rated, I believe, to zone 7, and we are zone 6. But that was a good test. And then I planted these 3 thalictrum, which will get nice and tall, about 4-ish feet tall. I'll try to look up the exact variety and pop up photo on the screen. But these do well in sun or shade, and these are a white variety of thalictrum. And then I planted back here, I've got this dotted throughout the garden. This is the Campanula Pritchard's variety, which will get like 6 feet tall, and it had these beautiful blue bell flowers, as all Campanulas do. So, and then I'm going to just pack this area out with more ground cover. And the last thing I planted yesterday was this lemony lace elderberry, and she's beautiful. She's planted between my 2 crabapple trees, so that will be a nice back anchor to this border. And I have a black lace elderberry, which actually suffered a lot of winter kill this year, my elderberries never needed to be cut back before. And I had to cut it back really hard this year to where there was any signs of new growth, which really surprised me. So our winter was tough on a lot of my plants, and certainly all my roses. So and then I've just been laying cardboard and starting to wheel the compost down here. But the problem is my compost is at the very end of the driveway, and I have to wheel it down this very steep hillside, and I got banged up pretty bad a couple times last night. So it's gonna be slow going, and I'm all out of cardboard, I think, now. So I'm just gonna get as much of this done as I can. So I found the tag. This is the Nimbus White Meadow Rue, which I planted in a group of 3 here. But I wanted to point out to you guys, um, see this bird? Can you see the bird in the tree pecking? So that's another sign that there's beetles larvae in the trees, because the birds are pecking at all those bare spots. That's all from birds to get at the larvae to eat them. So we have a lot of fat, happy birds around here because they're eating all the larvae. But if we don't cut these trees down and take them out, we could lose our whole forest. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I think what I want to do around the perimeter of the border where it starts to slope down and all those weeds want to come up, I think I want to line the whole back of the bed with rocks, with stones about this big, to kind of act as a physical barrier for any weeds to come back up, and also as a good just stopping point for the bed. Is this grass? Okay, so we have a big storm rolling in. I'm hearing lots of thunder, and I'm probably going to wrap this up for right now. But if you can kind of see behind me, I got a good amount of that back problematic area that um, had a lot of weeds coming up from the fill that we brought in here, covered with either cardboard or the construction paper that I picked up at Home Depot. Um, got that covered with a nice thick layer of mulch. And then what I'm going to do to kind of help solve the problem of nature creeping into the more formal planting is to outline the back rim of this border with rocks. Either I'm going to get some rocks from a rock pit we have in our community that we're allowed to use, these smaller rocks that come out of their blasting sites, or I'm going to go buy some more of these flagstone that I have around the pond that I'm going to be stacking up here anyway, and doing maybe like a 2 or 3 high stacked wall around that back perimeter, which would be really pretty. It just might be more time consuming and more work, but if I can use the other stone, it would just be a matter of just placing them along the rim. They're more of like that natural, um, thicker cut stone like I have on the rock wall, just a lot smaller. It's jobs like this that always remind me just how important having the right tools are, and it is my goal number 1 right now to get a John Deere rider mower with a scooper and a trailer to make jobs like this a whole lot easier on my body. Anyway, I hope you really enjoyed this. Happy gardening. I'll see you next time. Bye.